Hello, everybody, to the Mental Coffee series. This is your host, Peter Ngozi-Nyirongo, and you know what we do? We brew new leaders. So if you see me with my shades and my usual jumper and my cup of whatever I'm having on that day, and by the way, some of you have been saying, but why do you always chew on your show? My question is, have you read my book? If you have read my book, you realize I emphasize the importance of spreading your meals. Now, it so happens that at the time when I'm having interviews with incredible guests like the one that I have today, it is my meal time. So I hope that answers you. Okay? And remember, I practice what I preach. You know, I'm not doing this for camera or TV, but it's all about having a great conversation with great minds and, as a result, having a great impact to whoever comes in touch with the Mentored Coffee platform. So without further ado, I am super excited today to have on board a lady that I think left a mark on me many years ago when I was working for a company called Grand Ad in Zambia. That was my last formal job, as a matter of fact. And this lady came in with a lot of drive, and she was putting up something that was quite unique and different in Zambia at the time, which was in line with something to do with bridal shower. And I think she set up a boutique, if I'm not mistaken. But look, I won't tell the story. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a lovely guest. Her name is Jennifer Nash. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Can I call you Jenny?
That amazing introduction. Oh, for you, you can call me Mrs. Nash. It's Jennifer. That's fine. The British like to call me Jenny, and I don't like Jenny.
Yeah, no.
So Jen is fine. Jen is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Jenny, but Jen.
Jen, yeah.
Yeah. I think in Zambia they'll probably call you Jen. You're right.
Yeah.
In Britain it's Jenny.
Yeah. I don't do double NY.
Yeah. Great. So how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Peter, for having me. What an amazing concept. Mentored Coffee. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, where we brew new leaders, and we hope they come out fine at the end of it all. You know, we don't overthrow them. But the reports have been so great. Now we've got a podcast, which I host every single day, you know, and it's been running now. We've hit 60 days straight. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Amazing.
But, yeah, so I was just... part of my intro, I was just talking about how we met, you know, some years ago in Zambia. I think it's about close to 40. That was 2006, 2005?
Yeah, it's about 14 years, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us what you were doing specifically in Zambia, and then you can probably touch on what you were doing prior to coming to Zambia? Because I know you were in the US, and then you eventually met a great guy. That was the reason why you came to Zambia with him.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that opportunity, Peter. So I moved from the US in 2006. That's the time that I met my now current husband, Tim Nash. We're based in England now, but at the time that I met him, obviously I wasn't American. I was living in the US, and he's English from here, so we actually met online. So he was gracious enough and such an English gentleman that he traveled across the pond and came over to San Francisco to be with me after he proposed. And then fast forward, we kind of like didn't know where to settle down, and we decided to go into a neutral ground. But then I said to him, okay, I need to take you to my people first so that they can make sure that you're not a serial killer before I can move into a country with you. So that's how we moved home to Zambia. and then set up a Je t'aime bridal, like you rightfully put it. It was a bridal business, a wedding shop where we sold bridal wear, as well as set up a bridal magazine called Je t'aime.
I remember that magazine. Yeah. And it was all over the shops, right?
It was the first ever printed bridal magazine in Zambia at the time. Yes, it was everywhere. We were ahead of our time.
So tell me, what were you doing in the U.S. before 2006?
So in the US, I was working for an amazing company called David's Bridal. Prior to that, I was based in New York working for David's Bridal. And then 9/11 hit whilst I was in New York. And my mom was like calling me and saying, "Get out of New York. I don't want you in New York." At the time, my sister was based in Columbus, Ohio. So I requested for a transfer from David's Bridal. They transferred me over to Columbus, Ohio. So kindly so. But at that time, I was going through some personal issues. So I didn't want to stay in Columbus, and I didn't want to stay away. I wanted to stay away from the person that I was having issues with. So I was like, right, I need to move as far away as possible from this person. So that's when I packed my bags and moved to San Francisco. So this is in the West Coast, and that if anybody had to follow me, they would have to spend a lot of money on that flight to come and get me. And so when I got to San Francisco Bay Area, to be precise, that's when I reinvented myself and got myself into the property industry, and I started working for Campbell and Associates. And that's where I was at until 2006 when the recession hit. The property industry was the first one to be affected. So
what were you doing precisely with real estate?
So real estate per se, the company that I was working for, Chamberlain Associate, is actually a developer. So they developed commercial properties that they leased to commercial tenants. Tenants, sometimes they created, or rather developed bespoke properties, spaces like for FedEx. So they create a warehouse and list it out to FedEx. And one of their biggest clients was Elan Pharmaceuticals. So it was a big pharmaceutical companies which had bespoke facilities with labs and stuff like that. So I was an assistant property manager in this role.
Okay. And what was it like dealing with your tenants on a day-to-day basis?
Corporate tenants are not so much of a problem. So it was all fine most of the times. It was just like they were very demanding, and rightfully so, because most of the places, like I said, Elan Pharmaceuticals was a lab space. We had some lawyers in some of the buildings, and one of them we had a lab as well that was dealing with diabetic patients. So they needed certain equipment to be running on time at all the time. They needed to have power and stuff like that. So no day was the same. Every day was completely different. It kept me on my toes, from viewing or dealing with a client in San Francisco Bay Area to going to San Ramon. It was always an interesting ride. But Northern California, you can't complain. It was beautiful being there. It reminded me of home, actually, the climate.
Yes. So, so here you are, you're in San Francisco, 9/11 hits, and then finally you meet your husband. How did you guys meet?
So let me take you back on that step back. So I was in New York when 9/11 hit, and then I moved off to Columbus, Ohio, then Cincinnati, and then ended up in San Francisco. So there's a good 3 years or 4 years after 9/11. So and then fast forward to 2006, I met my husband. We met online on christianmingo.com.
You're not kidding me. He's an online husband? Wow.
Yep.
And you've been together for how long? 14 years now?
14 years,
From online. My goodness. And but then it was you sort of new, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was even embarrassing to talk about it then.
Yeah.
You know, like we'd be shying away, like, we actually met online. We would be so sheepish about it. But yeah, now we can proudly say we were the trendsetters. Even then, we
That's
were trailblazers. Yeah.
Oh man, really, really interesting. So, so you were in Zambia for how long before you relocated to UK?
To the UK. So we were in Zambia from 2006 until 2010 when the
Yeah,
recession hit again. So in our marriage, we've had three recessions. We've lived through three recessions.
unprecedented. Just
And
like
if a marriage can survive a
like
recession, it's
yeah,
going to last forever.
just to think of it, like 10 years ago, and if a marriage said that they have survived three recessions, you'd be like, you must be old.
Yeah, yeah.
But that just sort of shows you how dynamic
Yeah.
and evolving our society has become.
Yeah.
And I think because we're sort of like intertwined, both from a social as well as economic um perspective, that if one major thing falls in one country, it's got a domino effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this
Absolutely.
leads me to the next part of what I wanted to ask you, which is all of this for me spells leadership. And that's the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because for those of you that are just joining us right now, Jennifer Nash is going to touch on some of the activities that she's involved in and what her vision is. It's absolutely dynamic, which you'll get to hear in a moment. But like I was saying, for me, all of this spells leadership. At what point do you look back to say, you know what? I think at this point in my life, I realized that this is what it means to be a leader, and I could actually be a leader, and I feel that now I should probably be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. That's a very pertinent question, considering what I do, thought leadership.
Yeah.
So, so right now, so I'll just step back a little bit. So at what point did I discover that I wanted to be an entrepreneur? I think that way back when, as far back as 1999, when I started the bridal shop to begin with at Manda Hill, Zambia. For those of you that are listening that know Manda Hill, I was one of the first tenants at Manda Hill. So I had the very first shop at Manda Hill called Jetem. It was a bridal shop. And from there on, in fact, prior to that, I had a maid service, which in Zambia was again another first. So I had where I trained maids and then placed them with ministers and other chinondos to translate for those that don't know chinondos.
Yes.
That's the rich,
Yeah.
people with the extra income or disposable income. So yeah, I'm an entrepreneur throughout my life. Actually, if I had to put it on a scale, I've worked more or less for people 9 to 5 than I've been an entrepreneur. So if I had to split my career, I've worked 90% of it as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, when did I discover that I was a leader? I think it was after working for Chamberlain Associates. Working in America gave me lots of insights and gave me the strength to become that go-to person. My boss, the owner of the company named after himself, Steve Chamberlain, was an amazing leader. And I used to look up to him, and I used to say to myself, when I grow up, I just want to be like Steve Chamberlain. So when I moved to Zambia, I just knew that mentoring, borrowing from the title of your show, I just knew that in order to become a leader, you needed to lead from the front. And you needed to mentor the people that are coming behind you. So I was invited to my church at that point. I was going to Miracle Life. I was invited to speak to these young women who were in the
Was this when it used to be at Showgrounds?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's
if I recall, it used to be a nightclub, Oasis Club.
Exactly. So I was invited by my pastor to come and speak to the women who had the young girls who had what do you call it, a lockdown or whatever they called it. They had to have a night in, and then they would have a boot camp, more or less, and they needed to have speakers that would inspire these young women to become the best versions of themselves when they grow up. And it was at that incident, at that occasion, that I came across this young lady called Catherine Funda. And she just, I just took her under my wing and brought her into JTM. She was looking to go into the creative industry. She didn't know how to pay for her education. She couldn't afford it. I think she was an orphan at that time. So I took her under my wings, paid for her, for somebody to come and train her in-house. She was learning how to do InDesign within the company. As she did that, she was the one designing the magazine. So she learned on the job, but we also brought in a trainer to train her on the job. Today, I am so proud to say that Catherine has gone ahead and started her own company called Oomph, and she's one of the most successful people in Zambia in the creative industry. So when we left in 2010, Catherine was like, "How can you be leaving me?" We're like, "You're ready. You've been with us all these years. You're ready." And now she's even probably doing much better than I am. But that's what shows you as a leader. When you see someone you trained, you brought under your wings, and they're doing so much better. There's nothing more gratifying than seeing that, really.
I agree, 100%.